After 3 daughters, we finally had a son. My wife looked at our girls and said, "They're not my priority anymore." She pointed at our baby boy. "He's the only child I want." Then she threw divorce papers in my face. "Take your daughters. I'm keeping my son." Her mother stood behind her, smiling. Then I said 4 words and, "You're not keeping him." Their faces went pale. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now let's dive into today's story. For 12 years, Ryan Parker believed his marriage was ordinary. Not perfect, not terrible, just complicated in the way most long marriages became complicated, quietly and slowly, until the complications felt like furniture you stopped noticing. They lived in a quiet neighborhood on the west side of Columbus, Ohio. 2-story house, gray siding that needed washing every spring. A basketball hoop over the garage that nobody used anymore because the youngest was too short and the oldest had moved on to soccer. In the summer, the whole street smelled like cut grass and hot asphalt. In the winter, the storm door froze shut, and Ryan had to shoulder it open every morning before work. He was a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing plant off Harrisburg Pike. 12-hour shifts sometimes. He knew every machine in that building by sound. He could stand in the hallway outside the press room and tell you which line was running rough just by the pitch of it. His hands were rough and permanently marked with small scars, and his wife, Melissa, had once told him she liked that about him. That was a long time ago. Melissa Parker worked from home, part-time, doing the books for a handful of small businesses around the county. A dental office, a landscaping company, a family-run auto shop out in Grove City. She was good at it. She was good at most things she chose to be good at. They had 3 daughters. Hannah was 14, all elbows and opinions, already taller than her mother. Chloe was 11, quiet, the kind of kid who noticed everything and said almost none of it. Kayla was 7 and lived at full volume, running everywhere, singing in the shower, hugging people at the knees. Ryan loved being their father. It was not something he thought about the way people thought about ambitions or beliefs. It was simply the shape of his life. He had coached Hannah's rec soccer team for 4 seasons, standing on wet sidelines in a fleece jacket with a clipboard he never really used. He had sat at the kitchen table with Chloe on countless school nights, working through fractions and then decimals and then the beginnings of algebra, saying the same patient thing over and over until it clicked behind her eyes. He had spent more nights than he could count sitting on the floor beside Kayla's bed, one hand resting on her back, waiting for her breathing to slow down. Melissa was smart, very smart. She remembered every argument they had ever had in order with dates. She could reach back for years and pull out a single sentence he'd said in a bad mood and set it on the table between them like evidence. She knew exactly which relative to call when she wanted sympathy. Her mother first, then her sister in Cleveland, then, if needed, Ryan's own mother, which was a move Ryan never quite recovered from the first time she used it. She knew how to make a complaint sound reasonable. She never raised her voice in front of other people. She never demanded anything openly. She had a way of describing a problem so carefully, so patiently, that whoever was listening would eventually offer her exactly what she wanted, and then feel good about offering it. Ryan had watched her do it 100 times without ever naming it. For years, Melissa had wanted a son. She didn't announce it. She mentioned it. She dropped it into conversations. She would see a family at a restaurant with a boy in a little collared shirt, and she would say something soft and half-joking, and then she would go quiet for a while afterward. Her mother, Diane Collins, made it louder. "A boy changes everything," Diane said, more than once, usually while helping in the kitchen, usually with her back to Ryan. "A boy carries the name. A boy takes care of his mother when she's old." Ryan never argued with her. He learned early that arguing with Diane was like arguing with weather. But he also never cared. Not once. He had 3 daughters, and he had never sat in his truck in the parking lot after a shift and wished any one of them had been born different. Then the 4th child came. It was February. Snow on the ground. The parking lot at the hospital rutted with ice. Ryan had been at work when Melissa called, and he drove the whole way with his jaw locked, running yellow lights, his phone face up on the seat beside him. A boy. They named him Noah. Ryan held him 20 minutes after he was born. In the corner of the room where the light was soft and the machines had finally gone quiet. The baby weighed almost nothing. His fists were pulled up tight against his chest. Ryan felt the same enormous, terrifying, wide-open feeling he had felt 3 times before. The one that made his throat close and his eyes sting, and his whole life reorganize itself around a person who weighed 7 pounds. He was a father again. That was all. That was everything. He looked over at Melissa, expecting to see the same thing on her face. She was watching the baby, not holding him, watching him, and she was smiling in a way Ryan didn't recognize. "This is what I've been waiting for," she said. Ryan assumed she meant the exhaustion ending, the pregnancy behind her, the joy of a new child. He was wrong. The first weeks looked like every other newborn stretch Ryan had lived through. The house smelled like laundry detergent and warm milk. Nobody slept. The dishwasher ran at 2 in the morning. Ryan took the early feedings before his shift and the late ones after, and he stopped bothering to shave. Melissa was tired. Of course she was tired. Ryan brought her coffee and rubbed the knot out of her shoulder and told her she was doing fine. But small things started to shift, and Ryan noticed them the way he noticed a machine running half a degree off. Hannah had a National Honor Society induction at the high school. She had been talking about it for 3 weeks. She had picked out a dress and asked Melissa to look at it twice. 2 days before, Melissa said, without looking up from the changing table, "I can't leave Noah." Hannah stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. "It's an hour. He's 6 weeks old. Dad can watch him. Your father works. He's off Thursday." Melissa fastened the last snap on the baby's onesie and lifted him against her shoulder. "Hannah, it's a ceremony. There will be others." Ryan was in the hallway. He watched his daughter's face do something he'd never seen it do before, which was decide not to argue. He went. He sat in the 3rd row of the auditorium with a bad camera angle and clapped until his hands hurt. And when Hannah found him afterward, she hugged him hard and didn't mention her mother at all. A week later, Chloe came downstairs holding 2 hangers. "Mom? Which one?" Melissa was on the couch with the baby, phone in her free hand. She glanced up for less than a second. "Ask your father." Chloe looked at the hangers, then at the back of her mother's head. She carried both dresses back upstairs and picked one herself and never asked again. Kayla was 7, and 7-year-olds are not subtle. She spent an entire Saturday afternoon at the kitchen table with markers, making a drawing of the whole family. 6 stick figures, all holding hands, the baby drawn as a small oval with a smile in it. She wrote everyone's name above their head in careful, uneven letters. She brought it to her mother with both hands, the way you'd carry something breakable. Melissa looked at it for maybe 2 seconds. "That's nice, honey." Then she turned back toward Noah and adjusted his blanket. Kayla stood there. She waited. Ryan, standing at the sink with the water running, watched his daughter wait for something that wasn't coming, and felt something cold move through his chest. He dried his hands. "Hey, let me see that." Kayla brought it over. Ryan crouched down and looked at it properly, all of it, and pointed at each figure and made her tell him who was who. Then he put it on the refrigerator, front and center, and moved the school calendar out of the way to make room. "That's the best one yet," he said. She grinned and ran off. Ryan stayed crouched there a second longer than he needed to. He didn't confront Melissa. Not then. That was not how he worked. In his job, when something started going wrong, you didn't tear the machine apart on a hunch. You watched. You listened. You wrote down what you saw and when you saw it. And you waited until the pattern was undeniable. So he watched. He noticed the packages, small ones at first, then more. Little sweaters. A wooden crib mobile that cost $90. A stroller that replaced the perfectly good one they already had in the garage because the new one had better reviews. Melissa didn't hide the purchases. She simply didn't mention them. Meanwhile, Hannah needed new cleats. Melissa told her to check the resale shop on Broad Street. Chloe's school was running a spring trip to Washington, D.C. $280. Melissa said the timing was bad. Kayla asked for swim lessons at the Y. Melissa said, "We have to learn to live with less right now, sweetheart." That last one stuck in Ryan's throat for 2 days. Then he found the account. He wasn't snooping. He was at the kitchen table paying the water bill, and the statement was in the stack of mail, sitting right on top, unopened. A new savings account. Melissa's name. Custodial, for Noah. Opened 3 weeks after the birth. Funded with $1,200. Ryan set it down and waited until the girls were in bed. Melissa came into the kitchen carrying the monitor. She saw the statement on the table, and her face did not change at all. You went through my mail. It was in the pile. It's been there since Tuesday. Ryan leaned back in the chair. I'm not angry about the account. Then what? I want to open the same thing for the girls. Melissa filled a glass at the sink. We can't afford everything, Ryan. We afforded $1,200. That was a gift from my mother. Then we can afford 3 more accounts with $20 in each. He kept his voice flat. That's $60. That's not the issue, and you know it. She turned around and leaned against the counter and looked at him with an expression of gentle, patient concern. It was an expression he had seen so many times that he could have drawn it. Don't turn this into something it isn't. There it was. Ryan had heard that sentence for 12 years. He had heard it when he asked why she told her mother about their argument. He had heard it when he asked why the joint account was $300 short. He had heard it when he asked, once, very carefully, whether she was happy. It was not an answer. It had never been an answer. It was a door closing with a smile on it. They're my kids too, he said. Nobody said they weren't. Then say yes to the accounts. I'll think about it. She took her water and went upstairs. Ryan sat in the kitchen with the light off for a long time. He listened to the furnace kick on. He listened to the house settle. Then he got a spiral notebook out of the junk drawer, the cheap kind, 70 cents, and wrote the date at the top of the first page. Underneath it he wrote, Savings account, Noah, $1,200. Girls, $0. He didn't know yet what he was building. He only knew that he had spent 19 years fixing things by writing down what he saw. It was a Thursday in April when Ryan came home and found Hannah crying. He knew before he reached the top of the stairs. Her door was mostly closed, and she was doing that thing where she tried to cry silently, and it came out worse in short broken pulls of air. He knocked twice with one knuckle. Han. I'm fine. Okay. He didn't leave. He sat down on the hallway floor with his back against the wall, still in his work boots, and waited. 40 seconds later the door opened. She sat down next to him on the carpet, knees up, sleeves pulled over her hands. Her eyes were swollen. 14 years old, and already trying to look like nothing touched her. What happened? Ryan asked. Hannah wiped her face with her sleeve. It's stupid. Try me. She was quiet for a while. Down the hall, the baby monitor made a soft crackling sound. Mom said Noah is the only one she has to worry about now. Ryan felt his back teeth come together. He kept everything off his face. She said that? Those words. Hannah nodded. I asked her if she was coming to the awards night in May. She said probably not. And I said you never come to anything anymore. And she said, Hannah's voice caught. She said, Hannah, Noah is the only one I have to worry about now. You girls are old enough to take care of yourselves. Ryan looked at the wall across from him. There was a small dent in the drywall from when Chloe was 4, and threw a shoe. Did she say anything else? Hannah hesitated. That hesitation told him there was more, and that the more was worse. Han. She said Dad would take care of us anyway. There it was. Ryan did not move. He did not go downstairs. He did not raise his voice. But something inside him went very quiet and very clear, the way it did on the plant floor when an alarm came in and everyone else started talking at once. Because that sentence was not carelessness. That sentence was a plan. Melissa had already begun writing the story. In the story, Ryan was the father the girls depended on. In the story, Melissa was the devoted mother of a newborn. In the story, when everything came apart, the arrangement would look natural, obvious, something that had simply happened rather than something she had built. And she had said it to a 14-year-old, which meant she was already testing how it sounded out loud. Ryan put his arm around his daughter's shoulders and pulled her in. Listen to me. Dad, listen. He waited until she looked at him. You are not too old to be taken care of. You are not extra. You are not a leftover. Whatever anybody in this house says or doesn't say, that's the truth, and I need you to keep it somewhere safe where nobody can take it from you. Hannah's face came apart again. She leaned into his shoulder, and he held on. Is she going to leave? She asked, muffled. Ryan thought about lying. He thought about it seriously for about 3 seconds. I don't know, he said. But if anything changes, you'll hear it from me first. Not from a rumor. Not from Grandma Diane. From me." She nodded against his sleeve. Later that night, after the house went dark, Ryan sat in the truck in the driveway with the engine off and the notebook on his knee. He wrote the date. He wrote down what Hannah had told him, in her words, in quotes, exactly the way she'd said it. Then he sat there for a while with his hand on the steering wheel. 12 years. He thought about the day they bought the house, both of them standing in the empty living room with the echo bouncing around, Melissa spinning in a slow circle with her arms out. He thought about her sitting on the bathroom floor at 3 in the morning with Chloe's fever, cool cloth on the back of the girl's neck, singing something under her breath. That woman had existed. He hadn't imagined her. He didn't know exactly when she'd stopped, or if she'd ever really been that person, or if she had just been good at wearing her. He put the notebook in the glove box under the insurance card. Then he went inside, checked on the baby, checked on all 3 girls, and went to bed beside his wife without saying a word. 6 weeks after Noah's birth, Melissa stopped hinting. Ryan got home a little after 5:30 on a Tuesday. Warm evening, the kind where the light comes in low and gold through the front windows and makes the whole house look better than it is. He smelled coffee, which was strange for that hour. Diane's silver sedan was in the driveway. He came in through the garage, set his lunch cooler on the counter, and stopped. Melissa was sitting at the dining room table. She had done her hair. She was wearing a soft blue sweater he hadn't seen in a while. Her mother sat to her right, hands folded, chin up, wearing the expression of a woman who had come to witness something. There was a manila folder on the table, papers squared up beside it, edges perfectly aligned. The baby monitor sat next to Melissa's elbow, the little green light steady. Ryan looked at the papers. He didn't sit down. "What's this?" Melissa answered calmly. No tremor. She'd rehearsed it. Divorce papers. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, a door closed softly, and Ryan understood that at least one of his daughters was listening. He did not touch the papers. "Why? I don't want this marriage anymore." "Why now?" Melissa's eyes went, just briefly, toward the monitor. "Because I finally understand what matters." Ryan let that sit in the air. "What does that mean?" She slid the stack across the table toward him. Her nails were done. He noticed that, absurdly, and filed it away. "I want primary custody of Noah." Ryan waited. "And the girls? You can have them." The words landed in the room and just stayed there. Ryan had spent 19 years around heavy machinery. He had seen a man crush his hand in a press, and he had kept his voice level while he applied the tourniquet, because the worst thing you can do in a bad moment is add noise to it. He kept his voice level now. "Say that again." Melissa sighed, gently, like he was being difficult. "Ryan, don't do this. I want to make sure I heard it. You can have the girls." She adjusted the sleeve of her sweater. "They're old enough. They already depend on you more than they depend on me. Hannah barely talks to me. Chloe never has. Kayla," she made a small gesture. "Kayla adores you. I'm not going to pretend otherwise and drag them through a fight for the sake of appearances." She said it as easily as if they were dividing the contents of a garage. "The lawn mower is yours. I'll take the patio set." Ryan finally understood what he had been watching for 4 months. This was not about a baby. This was not about postpartum exhaustion or a marriage that had quietly worn out. This was Melissa deciding which of her 4 children were useful to the life she wanted next, and which ones were overhead. Diane spoke for the first time. "It's really the most practical arrangement." Ryan didn't look at her. Then Melissa added, in exactly the same reasonable tone, "I want the house too." Ryan almost laughed. It came up out of his chest and he stopped it at his teeth. "You're asking for the house and the baby. I've been raising the children. You've been living here." Her jaw tightened, the first crack in the surface. "I have a right to it. You have a claim to half of it. That's a different sentence." Diane leaned forward. "Melissa deserves stability. She has an infant. You can't expect a woman with a newborn to go find an apartment." "I don't expect anything, Diane." Ryan finally turned his head toward her. "I'm just listening." The older woman's mouth flattened. Melissa recovered fast. She always did. "I'm trying to make this easy. I'm trying to keep this out of a courtroom for the kid's sake. If you fight me on Noah, that's a choice you're making, and everyone will see it as a choice you made." There it was again, the rearrangement. Somehow, In under 5 minutes, she had turned a document she brought into the house into a thing he was doing to her. Ryan pulled out the chair across from her. He sat down. He rested his forearms on the table, hands loose. He looked at her for a long moment. 12 years of a person. Her handwriting on the calendar in the kitchen. Her shampoo in his shower. Then he said it quietly. "You're not keeping him." Melissa's mouth curved. Not a real smile. A confident one. "You can't stop me. Courts don't take infants from their mothers, Ryan. Ask anyone. I'm not going to stop you." "Then, I don't need to stop you myself." Melissa's face changed. It was small. If you hadn't lived with her for 12 years, you would have missed it entirely. But Ryan saw it. A flicker behind her eyes, a half-second where the script she had prepared didn't have the next line in it. Diane looked between them, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ryan stood up. He picked up the papers, squared them, and tucked them under his arm. "It means I'll have my attorney contact yours," he said. "Everything goes through counsel from here. I'd appreciate it if you didn't discuss any of this with the girls until we've agreed on how to tell them. They're my daughters, too." "I know," Ryan said. "That's the first time you've said so all week." He walked out of the dining room. He went up the stairs. Hannah's door was open 2 inches, and she was standing just inside it, white-faced, and he stopped and put a hand on the doorframe. "You okay?" "I heard." "I know." "Is she really?" "Yes." He didn't dress it up. "Your mother filed for divorce." "That's true, and it's happening. Everything else people are going to say about it over the next few months. You come to me, and I'll tell you what's real." Hannah's chin trembled once, and then locked. "Is she taking Noah?" Ryan looked at his oldest daughter. 14. Already carrying more than she should have to. "No," he said. "She isn't." Then he walked down the hall to the nursery, where his son was asleep on his back with his arms thrown over his head, completely unaware, and Ryan stood in the dark with one hand on the crib rail until his breathing slowed down. Downstairs, the front door opened and closed. Diane's car started. Ryan didn't move. He had until morning to be furious. After that, he was going to be something much more useful. Melissa moved into the guest room and began her campaign the same week. She was careful about it. She was always careful. She never screamed. She never insulted Ryan in front of anyone. She never once said a hard thing about him where a witness might hear it. Instead, she said soft things, in a low voice, with her eyes down and a tissue folded in her hand. At her sister's kitchen table in Cleveland, over the 4th of July weekend, she said, "I don't want to destroy Ryan. I really don't. I just want my baby to be safe." Every one of those sentences did 2 jobs. It made her sound generous, and it planted the idea that Noah was in some kind of danger. Her attorney was a man named Trevor Nolan, who had an office in a converted house on the north side with a gravel lot and a brass nameplate. In their second meeting, she told him, "Ryan is only fighting me because I asked for the divorce. It's about pride. It isn't about the baby." Trevor wrote that down. To her mother, she said nothing at all, because with Diane she didn't have to. Diane had been building the same story for 30 years about her own marriage. She recognized the shape of it and stepped in without needing instructions. Within 10 days, half of Melissa's extended family believed that Ryan had turned cold after the birth, that he had become controlling about money, that he had changed. He had not changed. He had started paying attention. To Diane, those looked identical. And underneath all of it, Melissa was counting. She wanted the house because the mortgage was low and the equity was high, and staying in it meant not restarting. She wanted primary custody of Noah because a mother with an infant is the most sympathetic figure in any courtroom in America, and she knew it. She wanted child support for Noah. She wanted the larger share of the marital assets, on the argument that she had sacrificed her career. And she wanted Ryan to carry the daughters. Their food, their clothes, their braces, their insurance, their college, while she concentrated everything she had on one child. Written out, it was greedy. Spoken out loud in a soft voice, one piece at a time, over months, to different people, it sounded like a tired mother asking for the minimum. She thought she could get all of it. She had spent her entire adult life learning exactly how to make people feel sorry for her. It had worked on her mother, her sister, her friends, 3 employers, and 1 husband for 12 years. She had no reason to believe it would stop working now. Lisa Grant's office was on the 4th floor of a plain brick building downtown, and the elevator smelled like carpet shampoo. She was in her 50s, gray at the temples, reading glasses pushed up into her hair. She listened to Ryan talk for 22 minutes without interrupting once. When he finished, she capped her pen. Okay, here's the most important thing I'm going to tell you today, and if you ignore it, nothing else I do will matter. Ryan waited. Stop fighting with her verbally. He nodded slowly. I mean it, Lisa said. No more kitchen table arguments. No more standing in the hallway explaining yourself. Everything goes through counsel. She lives in my house. For now. Which makes this harder and makes it more important. She leaned forward on her elbows. Listen to me. Don't send angry texts. Don't threaten her. Don't insult her, not once, not even when she earns it. Don't tell the children what you think of their mother. Don't post anything. Don't vent to a relative who talks to her family. Assume that every word you write will be printed out, blown up, and handed to a judge. And if she lies, she will lie. Lisa said it without any heat, the way a mechanic tells you a part is going to fail. Women like this always do, and so do men like this, and I've represented both. Your job is not to correct the lie in the moment. Your job is to make sure that when we get in front of a judge, the record is so clean it's boring. Ryan sat with that. Boring, he repeated. Boring wins custody cases. Dramatic loses them. He reached into his jacket and put the spiral notebook on her desk. 70 cents. Coffee ring on the cover. Lisa opened it. Flipped a page. Then another. Her eyebrows went up half an inch. You've been keeping dates. Since March. Times when I had them. Direct quotes when I was sure. When I wasn't sure, I wrote that I wasn't sure. Lisa closed the notebook and looked at him with something new in her face. Mr. Parker, I've been doing this for 26 years. Do you know how many clients bring me contemporaneous notes with honest uncertainty marked in them? No, neither do I, because I'd have to use both hands, and I've never needed to. She slid the notebook back. Keep going. Don't add anything you didn't see yourself. Don't editorialize. Just record. Ryan followed every instruction. All of them. Exactly. And Melissa noticed within a week. The first message came on a Sunday night. You're destroying this family. Ryan read it standing in the garage. He typed, I'll discuss this through our attorneys. He hit send and put the phone in his pocket. 2 days later, you're keeping my son from me. I hope you understand what you're doing to him. He was not keeping Noah from her. She was living in the same house. She had the baby in her room. But the message existed now, and messages become evidence, and Ryan understood exactly what she was building. He typed, Noah is here, and you have full access to him. Anything else goes through counsel. Nothing more. No defense. No explanation. That was the part that got to her. By August, the messages came in bursts, sometimes 6 in an hour, late at night. You're trying to make me look like a bad mother. You've turned Hannah against me. I gave you 12 years. Answer me. Are you seriously not going to answer me? Ryan read every one. He screenshotted every one. Then he replied with the same 11 words, or with a single line of logistics. Pediatrician appointment Thursday at 2:15, I'll be there, and nothing else. He learned something in those months that he had not known about his own marriage. Melissa had never actually won an argument with him. She had won the aftermath. She had won the part where he got frustrated, said something too sharp, and then apologized. She won by getting him to hand her something she could hold. He stopped handing her things. She could not manipulate a conversation that no longer existed. One night in September, she came out onto the back steps where he was sitting with a glass of water. You used to talk to me. Ryan looked out at the yard. The neighbor's motion light clicked on and off as a cat crossed the fence. I know. That's it? That's all you have. Melissa. You set the glass down on the step. You brought divorce papers into my dining room with your mother sitting next to you. What conversation do you think is left? She stood there for a moment. Then she said, quieter, and it almost sounded real. You're being cruel. I'm being quiet, Ryan said. You're just not used to it. She went inside and shut the door harder than she needed to. He sat there until the water in the glass went warm. It got uglier in October, and it got uglier over money. Trevor Nolan filed a request for an unequal division of marital assets. The argument was straightforward and on its surface, sympathetic. Melissa had reduced her career for the family. For children in 14 years. Bookkeeping was what she could do around them, not what she had wanted. Ryan didn't deny it. He told Lisa so directly. She did give things up. That part's true. I'm not going to sit in a courtroom and say my wife did nothing for 12 years, because she didn't do nothing. Lisa looked at him over her glasses. That's a good instinct, and it's also good strategy. Judges can smell a man who's trying to erase a mother. So, what do? We don't attack her contribution. Lisa tapped the folder in front of her. We look at her conduct. Because there was something else Ryan knew, something he had not thought about in years until he started thinking about everything. Melissa had run the household finances for most of the marriage. It had happened naturally, or it had looked natural. Early on, she'd said she was better with numbers, which was true, and Ryan worked long shifts, which was also true. So she paid the bills. She kept the spreadsheets. She handled the taxes with the guy in Grove City. Along the way, she had insisted on keeping certain accounts separate. Her business account, because of the bookkeeping clients. A small money market she'd opened with an inheritance from her father. A credit card in her name only, which she said was for building her own credit. Ryan had agreed to all of it, every single time, because he trusted her, and because arguing about money with Melissa was exhausting in a way he could never quite explain. Now Lisa's paralegal pulled 36 months of statements. The picture that came out of them was not criminal. Lisa was clear about that from the beginning. Nobody's going to jail. I want that understood. Then why does it matter? Because it's a pattern, Lisa said, and patterns are what custody cases are actually about. Item 1. In January, a full month before Noah was born, and 4 months before she put papers on the dining room table, Melissa had moved $9,000 from the joint savings into her personal money market in 3 transfers of $3,000 each. 3 separate transfers, none of them large enough to be a conversation. Item 2. In the 6 weeks before she filed, she had spent just over $4,000. A new laptop, a dental procedure that had been optional for 2 years, a set of luggage, and prepayment on a storage unit in Hilliard. Item 3, and this was the one Lisa circled twice in red. The custodial savings account for Noah had been opened on March 4th and funded with $1,200, and there were 2 more deposits after that, for $100 each, in April and May. During the same window, Melissa had told Hannah the spring trip was too expensive, told Kayla they had to live with less, and told Ryan, in writing in a text message he still had, we really can't be putting money into savings right now. Ryan read the columns twice. She wasn't hiding money to steal it, he said slowly. No, Lisa agreed. She was positioning. She was making sure that when this started, she'd be standing on higher ground than you. Ryan sat back in the chair. The radiator under the window ticked. He thought about all the times he had let something go because it wasn't worth the fight. Small surrenders. Hundreds of them, spread across 12 years. Each one reasonable on its own. That was how it worked, he realized. Not one big theft. 1,000 tiny ones, and every one of them approved by him. I signed off on all of it, he said. You trusted your wife. That's not a character flaw. Lisa capped the red pen. But we're done with that part. From now on you sign nothing without me. You agree to nothing verbally, and if she asks you for anything, a check, a favor, a schedule change, the answer is send it to Lisa. Ryan nodded once. Send it to Lisa, he repeated. Say it in your sleep. By November, Melissa had run out of adults to convince. Her sister had gotten careful on the phone. 2 friends had stopped picking up. Even Diane had started saying things like, well, of course there are 2 sides, in the specific tone of a woman preparing to have always thought so. So Melissa turned to the only audience she had left. Ryan started hearing it secondhand. Chloe, quiet at dinner, pushing rice around her plate. Then, out of nowhere, are you allowed to keep Mom away from Noah? Ryan put his fork down. No, and I'm not doing that. Why? Chloe shrugged with one shoulder, which was Chloe for I've said too much already. He didn't push. He wrote it in the notebook. 2 days later, Kayla asked him, at bedtime, in a small voice, is Mom going to take Noah on a trip? Where do you hear that? She said maybe. Ryan smoothed the blanket over her shoulder. Nobody's going anywhere. You'll always know where everybody is. I promise. He wrote that one down too. The confrontation came on a Saturday. Ryan was in the garage changing the oil in the truck when he heard raised voices through the kitchen wall. Not shouting. Melissa never shouted. But Hannah did. He wiped his hands and came in through the mudroom and stopped in the hallway, out of sight, because Lisa's voice was in his head, saying boring winds. Melissa, and you don't know everything that's happening. Hannah, I know Dad said you could see Noah whenever you want. He said it at dinner, in front of all of us. Your father says a lot of things. He didn't say anything bad about you. Hannah's voice cracked on the last word. That's the thing, Mom. He never does. You do. Every time. There was a pause. When Melissa spoke again, her voice had gone flat and cold in a way Ryan had heard maybe 4 times in 12 years. Don't repeat everything your father tells you. He's not telling me anything. That's what I'm saying. You've changed. Silence. Then Hannah's footsteps, fast on the stairs. Ryan stood in the hallway with a rag in his hands and made himself count to 20 before he moved. He went back out to the garage. He finished the oil change. He put the drain pan away and washed his hands with the orange soap and dried them on his jeans. Then he went upstairs. Hannah was face down on her bed with a pillow over her head. He sat on the edge of the mattress and put his hand on her back, between her shoulder blades, the way he used to when she was 6 and had a fever. She turned her head sideways. I don't want to choose between you, she said. Ryan felt that land somewhere under his ribs. You don't have to. That's not true. Everything's a choice now. If I'm nice to you, she looks at me different. If I'm nice to her, I feel like I'm lying. Hannah. He waited until she rolled over. Her eyes were red and furious and exhausted. Listen, you are 14. It is not your job to manage your mother's feelings. It's not your job to be a lawyer or a referee or a translator. You get to be her kid, and you get to be my kid, and none of the adult wreckage in this house is yours to carry. But I see it. I know you do, and I'm sorry for that. That's a real thing I owe you an apology for, and I'm giving it to you now. Hannah's face crumpled. He pulled her upright and hugged her, and she cried into his shirt, hard, the way she hadn't since she was small. Do I have to keep loving her? She asked into his shoulder. Ryan closed his eyes. You get to decide what you feel, he said. Nobody, including me, gets a vote on that. But you don't have to decide it this year. You've got your whole life. Take your time. She nodded. Downstairs, the baby started crying, and after a moment they heard Melissa's footsteps. Going to him, Hannah pulled back and wiped her face with the heel of her hand. Dad, is she really going to try to take him away from us? She's going to try, Ryan said. That's the honest answer. And he looked at his daughter. And she's going to find out that the truth is heavier than she thinks it is. Because the parents could not agree, the court ordered a custody evaluation. The evaluator's name was Angela Reyes. She had an office above a dry cleaner in Grandview, a small waiting room with 2 chairs and a box of tissues on the side table, and a calendar on the wall from a plumbing supply company. She would interview both parents separately more than once. She would interview the children. She would come to each household. She would review school records, medical records, financial disclosures, and anything else the court sent her. Then she would write a report, and in Franklin County that report was not the decision, but it was the ground the decision stood on. Melissa was confident. Ryan could see it in her posture the morning of her first session. She wore the blue sweater. She left an hour early. She had been rehearsing quietly for a week, and once, passing the guest room, he'd heard her practicing a sentence out loud to no one. She was very good at first impressions. She always had been. That was the thing about her that nobody outside the family ever understood. She wasn't faking. In the moment, she believed every word she said. That was what made her convincing. In her first interview, she described herself as the primary caregiver. She talked about night feedings and pediatric appointments and the fact that she worked from home. She emphasized Noah's age, over and over, gently, returning to it like a chorus. 9 months old, still nursing at night. Attached to her, Angela Reyes wrote and listened and said very little. Then, near the end, she looked up. Tell me about your daughters. Melissa paused. It was a small pause. 2 seconds, maybe 3. But it was there, and Angela Reyes noticed pauses for a living. They're very independent, Melissa said. In what way? Hannah's 14. She has her own life. Chloe reads constantly. She's in her own world. She always has been. And Kayla's easy. She's happy anywhere. Do you have concerns about their relationship with their father? No. Melissa said it immediately and firmly. She thought she was being generous. None at all. Ryan's a good father to the girls. Angela wrote that down. She would use it later, though not in the way Melissa expected. Do you believe the siblings should remain together? Normally, yes. The word normally sat in the room like a dropped glass. Angela set her pen down. Normally. I mean in general. Of course siblings should be together. I believe that. Melissa shifted in her chair. But Noah is different. Why is Noah different? Melissa answered without hesitation, and there was even a kind of warmth in it, which was the worst part. He's my only son. Angela Reyes did not react. She wrote one line and moved on to scheduling the home visit. Ryan's own interview was 2 days later, on a Thursday morning before his shift. He had thought about what he wanted to say for a week. Then, sitting in the small waiting room with the plumbing calendar, he threw all of it out. Angela asked him what outcome he wanted. All 4 kids together, he said, with me as the primary home and their mother in their lives on a real schedule that she can actually keep. Why you as primary? Because I'm the one who's been there for the parts that aren't fun. Give me an example. Chloe had a dental surgery 2 years ago. Impacted molar. Melissa doesn't do medical stuff. She gets lightheaded. So I took the day. I sat in the chair next to her and held the plastic bag in case she got sick in the car. Ryan shrugged. That's not a heroic story. That's just Tuesday. But there's about 9 years of Tuesdays. Angela made a note. Do you think Melissa is a bad mother? Ryan considered the question honestly for a long moment. I think she's a good mother when it's satisfying, he said. I don't think she's ever had to be a mother when it's boring. And most of it's boring. Do you want the children to have a relationship with her? Yes. Even after what's happened, they only get one mother. He said it flatly. What I want and what they need aren't the same thing, and I know which one matters. Angela looked at him for a second longer than she needed to. Mr. Parker, I'm going to ask you something, and I want a direct answer. Have you told the children anything negative about their mother during this process? No, not once. Not once. Why not? Most people do. Ryan thought about Hannah on the bedroom floor with her sleeves pulled over her hands. Because they're already losing something, he said. I'm not going to charge them extra for it. The thing that broke Melissa's case did not come from a dramatic discovery. There was no hidden recording, no affair, no confession, nothing anybody had to dig for. It came from a pediatric office on Fishinger Road. Angela Reyes had requested the children's medical records as a matter of routine. It was standard. It was on a checklist. Ryan had signed the release without thinking about it twice. Dr. Ellen Moss had been the family's pediatrician for 11 years, and her office kept meticulous files. Every visit, every well-child check, every date, every reason, and because the practice had a strict policy about who could consent to treatment, a note in each record identifying the accompanying parent. 11 years of accompanying parent. Lisa Grant got her copy on a Monday. She called Ryan at 4 in the afternoon, and he stepped outside the plant to take it, standing in the cold with his back against the brick wall. Ryan, are you sitting down? I'm at work. Then lean on something. He heard pages turning. Hannah's records go back to age 3. 31 visits. You are listed as the accompanying parent on 24 of them. Ryan closed his eyes. Chloe, 28 visits. You're listed on 21. Kayla, who has had more ear infections than any child I've ever read about, 44 visits. You're on 35. I have flexible shifts, Ryan said. I bank hours. That's not, Ryan. Stop being fair to her for 1 minute. It gets better. Better how? Noah, Lisa said. 9 months old. 14 documented visits, counting the well-child checks and the 2 sick visits and the RSV scare in October. And you're on 12 of them. Ryan opened his eyes and looked at the gray sky over the parking lot. 12, he said. Melissa is listed on 4. There's overlap where you both attended. Papers shuffling. And here's why I'm calling you at 4 o'clock. 3 weeks ago, in her second interview, Melissa told the evaluator that I'm reading her exact phrasing from the draft summary, inconsistent and unreliable when it comes to Noah's care. She said she couldn't count on you to handle his medical needs. Ryan didn't say anything. The RSV scare, Lisa went on. October 11th. Emergency visit at 7:40 in the morning. Who took him? I did. She was asleep. He was breathing wrong, and I didn't want to wait. The chart says the father presented the patient and provided the history. The chart says the father followed up by phone twice that week. Ryan let out a breath he'd apparently been holding for a while. So what happens now? Now nothing happens, Lisa said. That's the beautiful part. I don't ambush anybody. I don't make a speech. I file the records as an exhibit with the rest of the disclosure, and I let the evaluator do the comparison herself, because a conclusion a professional reaches on her own is worth 10 times a conclusion I hand her. Ryan stood there in the cold for a moment. Lisa. Yes. She's going to say I'm attacking her. She's going to say that no matter what we do. But there's nothing to attack here. Lisa's voice was calm and almost gentle. That's the whole point. We're not saying she's a liar. We're not saying she's a bad mother. We're saying, here is the record, and here is what she told you, and those two documents don't describe the same family. Ryan went back inside and finished his shift. He fixed a bearing on line 4. He signed a work order. He drove home in the dark, and at a red light on Trobway Road, he thought about all the mornings he had rushed a kid to a doctor's office with his hair still wet, and how none of it had ever felt like it was going into a record. But it had. All of it. Every ordinary Tuesday. Angela Reyes's report was filed 6 weeks later. It ran 41 pages. It was measured, careful, and almost bloodless, and it did not accuse Melissa of anything at all. It simply laid the claims and the record side by side and let the gap show. And it noted, in one dry paragraph on page 33, that when asked directly why the siblings should be separated, the mother's stated reason had been that the youngest child was her only son. Melissa read the report in Trevor Nolan's office on a Wednesday afternoon. Ryan wasn't there. He heard about it 2 days later from Lisa, who had gotten a call from opposing counsel asking whether Ryan would consider mediation. What did you tell him? Ryan asked. I said we'd listen. Lisa paused. Ryan, they're not asking for mediation because they think they'll win. They're asking because Trevor Nolan just read 41 pages of a professional politely explaining that his client's story doesn't hold up. Ryan stood in his kitchen. Upstairs, Kayla was singing something off-key. The dishwasher was running. Noah was in the high chair behind him, banging a plastic spoon against the tray with tremendous seriousness. No mediation, Ryan said. You're sure? Mediation is cheaper and faster. I'm sure. Tell me why. I need to know you're not doing this out of anger. Ryan turned and looked at his son. Because in mediation she gets to negotiate, he said. And she's better at negotiating than anybody I've ever met. In a courtroom, she has to answer questions. There was a pause on the line. All right, Lisa said. Then we go to hearing. The hearing was set for a Tuesday in March, 13 months after Melissa first put papers on the dining room table. Courtroom 4C on the 6th floor. Fluorescent lights. Radiators that clanked. Wooden benches worn smooth in the middle from decades of people sitting in exactly the same anxious spot. Ryan wore a gray suit he bought for a funeral 6 years earlier. Melissa arrived at 9 sharp, and she looked good. That was the first thing he noticed. Rested. Composed. Cream blouse. Dark skirt. A small gold cross she had not worn in years. Diane came with her and sat directly behind the table, so she'd be in the judge's line of sight. Melissa believed she was walking in as the mother protecting her baby. Ryan could see it in the way she carried herself. She had told the story so many times that it had become, for her, simply true. Judge Delaney was a woman in her 60s with short silver hair and half-moon glasses. She ran her courtroom the way a good foreman runs a floor, quietly, without wasted motion, and with an absolutely unmistakable sense of who was in charge. Trevor Nolan went first. His argument was clean. Noah was 21 months old. Very young children benefit from primary attachment to one caregiver. Melissa had been that caregiver in the earliest months, and disrupting that was contrary to the child's interest. The daughters were older, established, and had a strong bond with their father, and there was no dispute about that. The arrangement his client proposed was not a division of a family. It was a recognition of how the family already functioned. It was good. Ryan sat there with his hands folded on the table and thought, honestly, that it was very good. Then Lisa Grant stood up. Your Honor, we're not going to spend this morning telling you Melissa Parker is a bad mother. She isn't. She loves her son. Melissa's chin lifted slightly. What we're going to show you, Lisa continued, is a record. And what the record shows is that Mr. Parker has been the consistently available parent for all 4 of these children, not just the older 3. Not occasionally. Consistently. For 11 years. She walked it through, unhurried. The pediatric records. The attendance figures for all 4 children. Noah's 14 visits, and who had brought him to 12 of them. The emergency visit in October, and the father who had made both follow-up calls. The school records. 11 years of forms, conferences, emergency contacts, permission slips, and the parent's signature that appeared on the overwhelming majority of them. The evaluator's report. Not read aloud dramatically, just entered, with 3 paragraphs directed to the court's attention. The absence of a single credible allegation that Ryan Parker was unsafe, unstable, unfit, or absent. And finally, Your Honor, there's the sibling relationship. Lisa set down her pen. The evaluator observed all 4 children together on 2 separate occasions and described the bond as unusually strong. Noah is closest to his oldest sister. He has slept in the same house as those 3 girls every night of his life. The petition before you would end that. And when the evaluator asked the petitioner directly why these children should be separated, the reason given had nothing to do with Noah's needs. Judge Delaney turned a page. Then she looked up over her glasses. Mrs. Parker, I'd like to hear it from you. Melissa straightened. Trevor Nolan's hand moved slightly, the small warning gesture of a lawyer who cannot stop a judge from asking a question. Why should these children be separated? Melissa's mouth opened, closed. She had prepared for cross-examination. She had not prepared for this. I don't think of it as separating them. The order you've requested would place 1 child with you and 3 with their father, with alternating weekends. The judge's voice was perfectly even. That's separation. I'm asking you why it's in these children's interest. I think Noah needs me, Melissa said. And the daughters? Something flickered across Melissa's face, and Ryan recognized it instantly because he had watched it for 12 years. It was the look she got when a conversation stopped going the way she'd mapped it. They have their father, she said. Judge Delaney let a beat of silence go by. The radiator ticked. They have you as well, Mrs. Parker. Melissa said nothing. The judge waited longer than was comfortable, and then she wrote something down, and the sound of the pen was the loudest thing in the room. After the recess, Lisa introduced the messages. They had come out of ordinary discovery. A year of texts between Melissa and her mother, produced because they'd been referenced in a financial dispute about the storage unit. Nobody hacked anything. Nobody snooped. Melissa had handed them over herself, through her own attorney, because she had forgotten what was in them. Lisa read 2. The first was from January, 3 weeks before Noah was born. Once Noah is here, I won't have to worry about the girls so much. The second was from March, 6 weeks before she filed. Ryan can handle the older 3. I want to focus on my son. Ryan watched Melissa's face while they were read into the record. She didn't cry. She went very still, the way a person does when they hear their own voice on a recording and realize how they actually sound. Mrs. Parker, Judge Delaney said, do you want to address those? Melissa reached for the water glass and didn't drink from it. I was pregnant, she said, and then I had a newborn. I was overwhelmed. People say things when they're overwhelmed that they don't. That isn't who they are. Lisa nodded slowly. That may be true, she said, and she meant it. Ryan could hear that she meant it. Exhaustion is real. Postpartum is real. Nobody in this room is going to pretend otherwise. Then she turned to the bench. But the question before the court isn't whether Mrs. Parker was tired. It's whether the custody arrangement she's asking for reflects these children's actual needs, or reflects a preference she formed before the youngest child was even born and has been consistent about ever since. Judge Delaney read both messages again, silently, taking her time. Ryan understood, watching her, exactly what had just happened. For 13 months, Melissa had presented herself as a mother fighting to hold on to her children. Every relative, every friend, every professional had received that version. In her own words, sent to her own mother, in her own moment of honesty, described something completely different. She had wanted one child. She had been willing to leave the other three, and she had said so out loud, in writing, twice, before there was any lawyer or courtroom or reason to perform. Diane, sitting in the second row, was looking at her hands. Trevor Nolan asked for a short recess. The judge denied it and called the lunch break instead. In the hallway, Melissa caught Ryan's sleeve near the elevators. Ryan. He stopped. He didn't pull away, but he didn't turn all the way around either. You had those the whole time, she said. So did you. Her eyes searched his face for something. The old opening, the crack where he'd soften and explain himself and hand her something to work with. It wasn't there. Talk to your attorney, Ryan said, and got in the elevator. Judge Delaney issued her ruling from the bench at 3:40 that afternoon, and she read it slowly enough for everyone to keep up. Shared legal custody. Both parents would have equal say in education, medical decisions, and religious upbringing. Primary physical custody of all 4 children to the father. The siblings would remain together. The judge said that phrase twice, and the second time she looked up from the page while she said it. Melissa would have parenting time every other weekend, 1 weeknight dinner each week, half of all school breaks, and alternating holidays. A real schedule, a full one, the kind of schedule a parent can build a relationship inside of if she chooses to. The marital home would be sold and the proceeds divided according to the settlement terms, with an adjustment reflecting the $9,000 transferred out of joint savings in January. And Melissa would contribute toward child-related expenses, in an amount set against her documented earning capacity, because there were 4 children and both parents were responsible for them. Melissa did not get the house. She did not get the larger share. She did not get her son. Ryan listened to all of it with his hands flat on the table and did not allow himself to feel anything until the judge stood and the bailiff called the room to rise. Then his knees went slightly strange, and he had to press his fingertips against the tabletop. Lisa touched his shoulder once. Breathe. I'm breathing. You're gray. I'm fine. Outside in the corridor, by the tall window at the end where the radiators were loudest, Melissa was waiting for him. Diane hovered 10 feet back. Trevor Nolan had already gone. You ruined my life, Melissa said. Ryan looked at her. No. You took everything from me. Her voice was climbing, and there was no audience for it, which was the strange part. There was nobody to perform for. This was just true. My house. My son. My family. You asked for a divorce, Ryan said. You brought the papers to my table with your mother sitting next to you, and you told me I could have the girls. I've never once repeated that sentence to a judge. I didn't have to. You said it into a room. She shook her head hard. I wanted my son. That's all I ever wanted. No. Ryan's voice stayed low. You wanted to win. Melissa stared at him. You wanted to be the one who ended up with the thing that mattered most, he said. And somewhere along the way you decided which of your kids that was. That's the part I'll never get past. Not the divorce. Not the money. The ranking. Diane started forward. Now that is unfair. Ryan turned his head and looked at her, and whatever was in his face stopped her at 8 feet. He looked back at Melissa. You treated your children like pieces on a board, he said. 3 you could trade. 1 you had to hold. They're going to grow up and understand that eventually, and no court order is going to protect you from it. Melissa's mouth moved. Nothing came out. Ryan picked up his coat from the bench. Every other weekend starts Friday, he said. 6 o'clock. I'll have his bag packed with the formula he likes and the blue rabbit, because he can't sleep without it. If you need anything for him, text me. I'll answer that. He walked to the elevator and pressed the button and did not look back. The collapse came slowly, and Ryan had nothing to do with it. That was the part people never believed later, when they heard the story secondhand. They assumed he had campaigned. They assumed there had been a slow, patient poisoning of the well. There wasn't. He followed the order to the letter. Every other Friday at 6, the bag by the door. He kept a shared calendar. He forwarded school photos and dentist appointments and the flyer for Kayla's spring concert. When Melissa asked to swap a weekend for her sister's wedding in Cleveland, he said yes the same day and didn't ask for anything back. When the girls said something bitter about their mother, he did not agree and he did not argue. He said, "That's between you and her," and then he changed the subject to dinner. He never once told them what he thought. He had decided, standing in that hallway outside courtroom 4C, that he would never hand his children a reason to feel guilty about loving her. Melissa's image collapsed on its own, from the inside, one weekend at a time. Hannah went first. She was 15 by then 16, and she went from arguing with her mother to being unfailingly polite to her, which was so much worse. She said please and thank you. She answered questions with complete sentences that contained no information. Melissa asked her once, in the car, why she never talked about her life anymore, and Hannah said, "There's not much to tell," and looked out the window for the rest of the drive. Chloe stopped sharing anything personal at all. She had gotten into the honors art program at school and had a portfolio she carried everywhere, and Melissa found out about it in June from a school newsletter 2 months after Chloe had been accepted. When she asked to see the work, Chloe said the portfolio was at Dad's, which was true, and also a decision. Kayla was the one who said it out loud, because she was 9 and nobody had taught her not to. It was a Saturday night in her mother's apartment in Hilliard. Around 10:30, Ryan's phone rang. "Dad," Kayla, whispering, "can you come get me?" He was already reaching for his keys. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "No. I just want to come home." "Where's your mom?" "She's putting Noah to bed." "She's been putting Noah to bed for an hour." A pause, and then, very small, "It's just, I don't want to sleep here. Please." Ryan drove over. Melissa met him at the door with her arms crossed and her eyes bright. "She called you?" "Yes." "You couldn't have told her no?" "I could have," Ryan said. "I didn't." Kayla came out with her backpack already on both shoulders. Melissa crouched down. "Baby, what did I do?" And Kayla, who loved everybody, who hugged strangers at the knees, said the truest sentence of that entire 2-year war. "You didn't do anything. That's kind of the thing." Then she took her father's hand and walked to the truck. Ryan drove home with his jaw tight and said nothing about it. Not that night and not ever. And Noah grew. He turned 2, then 3. He learned to run before he could really steer. He went through a phase where he would only wear one specific pair of yellow socks. He called Hannah Hannah and Chloe Coco, and screamed with joy whenever Kayla came into a room. He didn't know any of the history. He didn't know there had been a courtroom, or a report, or a woman who had once sat at a dining table and said the words, "You can have them." He only knew what a small child knows, which is who shows up. When he was scared of the thunder, Hannah got in bed with him and told him the sound was just clouds bumping into each other, which he believed completely. When he had the stomach flu at 4, Chloe sat on the bathroom floor with him for 2 hours and brought him water in the plastic cup with the dinosaur on it. When he cried, over a scraped knee, a broken toy, a nightmare he couldn't explain, Kayla sat down next to him, every single time, without being asked. The 4 of them became something Ryan had not planned and could not have engineered. Melissa had fought to make Noah exclusively hers, to lift him out of the family and set him apart, to make him the one thing that was hers alone. Instead, she had made him the center of it. She had built the bond she was trying to break. Nearly 2 years after the divorce was final, Melissa asked to meet him. It came as a text, and it was short, which was new. "Can we talk? Not about the kids. Just talk. 20 minutes. Ryan looked at it for a long time before he answered. They met at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the courthouse, at a metal table on the sidewalk. Late September. The air had that first edge of cold in it. A bus hissed at the corner and pulled away. Melissa was already there when he arrived. She looked older. Not badly, just tired in a way that makeup doesn't reach. Her hair was shorter. She had a paper cup in both hands and hadn't touched it. Ryan sat down across from her. "Thank you for coming," she said. He nodded. She turned the cup a quarter turn on the table. "I know you hate me. I don't hate you." Her head came up. She looked genuinely startled. "I thought you did. All this time." "I've been assuming I did," Ryan said. "For about a year. It took up a lot of room." He looked out at the street. "Then I stopped spending energy on it. I had 4 kids and a mortgage and a new job title, and there wasn't space for it anymore." Melissa's eyes filled, and she blinked hard against it. "I lost my family," she said. "You didn't lose them." She looked at him. "You lost the marriage," Ryan said. "That one's gone, and it's not coming back. But Hannah's 17. Chloe's 14. Kayla's 10. Noah's 4. They're all alive, and they all know your phone number. They don't want me. They don't trust you. That's different, and it's not permanent." He leaned forward, forearms on the cold metal. "Melissa, you have 4 children who will spend the rest of their lives deciding, over and over, what you are to them. That decision isn't finished. You can still be their mother. Nobody in this world can take that job away from you except you." Melissa was crying now, quietly, the way people cry in public when they're trying not to. "How?" she said. "Show up when it's boring. That's the whole answer. Show up to the concerts nobody wants to go to. Learn the name of Chloe's art teacher. Ask Hannah about her actual life, and then don't say anything about yourself for 10 minutes. Do it for 4 years and don't ask them for credit while you're doing it." She wiped her face with the back of her wrist. Then she said it. "Can you forgive me?" Ryan didn't hesitate. He didn't soften it. He didn't look away. "No." Melissa flinched. "Why?" Her voice cracked. "You just said you don't hate me. You just sat here and told me how to fix things with my kids. Why not that?" "Because forgiveness is between me and my conscience," Ryan said. "Not between me and you. You don't get to schedule it. You don't get to ask for it at a coffee shop and have it handed over so you can feel lighter walking to your car. That's cruel. It's honest." He stood up and pushed the chair in. "And here's the part you should actually hold on to. So listen to it before you decide I'm the villain." She looked up at him. "You don't need my forgiveness to become a better mother," Ryan said. "You never did. I'm not standing between you and them. I never have been. Whatever you build with those 4 kids, you'll build without needing one word from me." Melissa put her hand over her mouth. Ryan picked up his keys off the table. "Noah's got a soccer thing Saturday at 10, he said. "The little kid league where nobody keeps score. He's terrible. It's very funny." He paused. "Field 3, behind the elementary school. You don't have to tell me if you're coming." Then he walked away down the sidewalk toward the parking garage, and he did not look back, and he did not slow down. Behind him, at the metal table, Melissa sat alone with a cup of coffee she never drank. The new house was smaller than the old one. 3 bedrooms and a converted den, on a street where the trees were older and the driveways were cracked. Ryan had bought it 18 months after the sale, with a payment he could carry alone. On a Saturday evening in June, he sat on that porch with a glass of iced tea, sweating a ring onto the rail beside him. The yard was loud. Hannah was in the driveway with Noah, running alongside his bike with her hand hovering an inch off the seat, not touching it, letting him think he was doing it himself. He was 5 now and had strong opinions about the training wheels, which had come off 2 weeks ago and gone into the garage where he couldn't see them. "Don't let go," Noah shouted. "I'm not letting go," Hannah said. She had let go 11 feet ago. Chloe was sitting on the grass under the maple with a sketchbook on her knees, drawing the same thing she'd been drawing all spring, which was hands. She had filled 40 pages with hands. She looked up every few seconds to check on her brother, and then went back down. Kayla came around the side of the house with the garden hose, thumb over the end, moving with the deliberate crouch of a person about to do something terrible. "Kayla, do not," Chloe started. Kayla did. The shriek that went up was the sound of a family. Hannah got soaked. Noah wobbled and put a foot down and started laughing so hard he had to sit on the driveway. Chloe grabbed her sketchbook and ran for the porch, yelling threats over her shoulder that nobody believed. Ryan sat there with the glass in his hand and watched. Noah got back on the bike. Hannah steadied him. He pushed off with both feet, wobbled, corrected, and then for maybe 15 feet rode. "Dad, look." Ryan looked up. His son was riding a bicycle across a cracked driveway with wet hair and a scraped elbow, laughing, and his 3 sisters were laughing with him, and the evening light was coming through the maple leaves in pieces. Ryan smiled. He thought about the cost. He was honest with himself about it, the way he was honest about everything now. The divorce had taken money he was still paying back. It had taken years of sleep. It had ended a marriage he had walked into at 26 believing it was permanent, and he would carry that for the rest of his life, in some quiet compartment he didn't open often. But Melissa had failed at the one thing she had been certain of. She could not divide the children. She could not lift one of them out and set him apart and call him hers. She could not build a life on the idea that being a mother to one child mattered more than being a mother to 4. And Ryan had never once had to destroy her to make that true. He hadn't attacked her. He hadn't told the girls a single thing, He hadn't sent one message he couldn't have read aloud in a courtroom. He had written down what he saw, kept his mouth shut, and let the record speak in a voice that was flatter and heavier than any argument he could have made. Her own choices had done the rest. They always do, eventually. His victory wasn't the ruling. It wasn't the house or the schedule or the paragraph on page 33 of a report in a filing cabinet downtown. It was 4 kids in a wet yard on a Saturday in June. For siblings who knew, without ever having to be told, that they belonged to each other. And a father who had refused, in a dining room, in an attorney's office, in a hallway outside courtroom 4C, and every single day since, to let one child be worth more than the others. Melissa had wanted everything. In the end, she learned what everyone like her eventually learns. You can fight to own everything and still lose the only things that were ever worth having.